Hello, role-playing people! And for my very first RPG podcast, I thought I'd share the way I run my World of Darkness games and what my expectations as a storyteller are, because I'm sure everyone does more of a thing, less of another, and every GM has certain expectations from players, certain things that bring them joy or discomfort when they happen at the table. Right off the bat, I want to say role-playing games for me are less gamey games and more of a collective storytelling experience. I only care for superpowers and builds and spells as long as they afford me to create interesting characters, intrigues, and hooks, and as long as it allows the players to do interesting, creative things with their protagonists and tell me a good story. And this is where you, the listeners, say, wait, you're the storyteller and you want your players to tell you a story? I think you're getting it wrong, buddy. Maybe I am, but I can wholeheartedly say running a game in the traditional style of GMing has never been my thing, for better or for worse. I don't want to write a story that players experience. I don't want them along for the ride. I don't want to rack my brain thinking about the next interesting thing I should throw at them from session to session. And I don't want to lead my players to a predetermined narrative conclusion. I really don't. I don't want to know how the story ends. I want my players to help me write this amazing story. We can write it together. What does that mean? That means I'm the kind of storyteller who always encourages the players to lead the game. I believe my duty is to present them with a world in which the protagonists can show who they are and do what they want to do, telling the stories the players want to tell. To that end, I will pick a place, very much in the style of Vampire the Masquerade, something by Night books. I will create an initial cast of characters, or simply use ready-made ones, and I will think of a plot, not the story. A plot. An event that is going to happen unless the characters either stop it or help bring it about. I make sure this plot is always tied to an NPC, as in it's the NPC's desire to bring about that scenario, because then the protagonists have the best chance of uncovering this secret. I make sure to create enough tension between NPCs and their agendas that they don't tear each other to shreds, but also don't work together effectively and are always tempted to use the player characters for gaining the upper hand over other NPCs. I make sure to have good reasons why powerful NPCs request the protagonist's help, because unless I do that, it's just going to feel like a side quest in a computer game, and it's going to feel cheap. Besides this, I always make sure to have my NPCs want something from the player characters that might have both positive and negative consequences further down the line, making sure to face the player with the consequences of their actions in accordance with their choices. To me, RPGs are all about choice, action, and consequence. If a player is running around completing side quests I threw at him that are inconsequential for the story, then I'm doing a bad job. And the player is going to treat this like it's a game, which is something I don't want. I want him to treat this like it's a collective storytelling experience. I place a lot of responsibility on my players. I'm counting on them to make the game fun for each other and for me as well. And that means I need them to make good, complex characters who can take initiative and lead the story. Indeed, I believe the story is already written on their sheets, and the sheets have been translated from their minds, from their concept. I believe there is no better story than the story of the characters' actions and the consequences that follow, their chosen struggles with themselves and the external world, and their endless efforts towards achieving a certain motivation. With enough maturity, characters with conflicting motivations can work together very well, and that is another goal of mine as a storyteller, not to box in characters, not to reduce them to a party of people who are similar, who have a collective motivation and no conflict between them. Oh no, I want the characters to be unique, and I'm counting on the players to get creative and bring together archetypes that wouldn't traditionally work. as part of the same story. I'm counting on them to accept not just the characters' successes and victory, but their failures and tragedies as well. But what do I do as storyteller to help this? Well, I keep my hand on the pulse of my world and the pulse of my NPCs and try to portray the world as authentically and believably as I can. I try my best to make it real. Every NPC makes moves that the player characters may or may not even be aware of. Every NPC has their fortes and flaws and opinions about recent events. Every one of them is a network, a collection of contacts, resources, allies. So the player character can make friends with these NPCs or hate their guts and try to ruin them. All is well as long as it makes sense for the character and the character is interesting for everyone at the table. I'm not the kind of storyteller who gets upset when the NPCs get killed. Far from it. It's a wonderful opportunity to delve into the motivation that led to such actions, the payoff, and of course the undesirable consequences that the player character has to deal with or without the help of the other player characters. My style of GMing says, bring anything you want to the table, but make sure you talk about it with the other players and make it work to everyone's fun. My goal is to tailor the game to the characters and make it about them. Now, is this a good way to introduce people to roleplay? Not necessarily. Maybe. While the sandbox, free roam, run around doing whatever you please aspect of it is fun for newer players, their inability to really consider the consequences of their actions according to the setting and their lack of table etiquette can lead to some pretty sad and disappointing moments. Now, for more experienced players, I find this the best way to let them try the things they wouldn't be able to try in a traditional, more linear style of game. I find it the only way in which characters with different moralities can function as part of the story. They do that by not being too close. And the sandbox style game always allows distance between the characters. They are not adventurers who set out towards a common goal and have nothing but each other. Oh no, these are characters who reside in a certain place and have all of their tools at their disposal to do whatever they want. Should they not want to work together just yet, and the players are fine with that, they can do that. That's great. What's important here is keeping a balance between individual scenes and collective scenes. However, individual scenes can tell the other players a lot about the character, things that maybe wouldn't surface if the character is with the group. It's a great way of surprising players without making them the aim of the surprise. Certainly, every now and then, I will throw something at my players, something to have them working as a group, to keep them very much invested in that event and finding out more about it. But you see, that's the beauty of it. What I've just described here is a choice. It's my choice as the storyteller to spice things up a bit. It's not a constant. It's not the chore of having to constantly find things for the players to care about, making sure to narrate everything flawlessly, making sure to balance out a potential combat encounter that they win barely, and we can just pretend it was close. When obviously my goal as GM was not to kill them, but to get to a story conclusion. The way I run my games, the players are given ample opportunity to gauge the NPC's intentions and power levels. If their characters get into a fight with the wrong NPC, they die. That's it. Part of my duty as storyteller is to play the other characters. Why would I sit on the sidelines and improvise encounters when I can make a character I enjoy portraying? I make them at the start of the game, stat them out, then literally play them just like any other player would. Isn't that the more authentic way of playing NPCs? Like I said before, action and consequence. So to conclude, I run my World of Darkness games allowing pretty much anything the player wants to play. I bring the world, interesting NPCs, and a plot or a major event that happens in absence of player choice. Then I make my game all about the player characters and their choices, which of course have consequences. I let them explore the world, make it their own, grab it by the throat, whatever they want to do, and hopefully, in the process, they discover just where this plot is going. In doing so, they can play into it or against it. Meanwhile, I stay true to the NPCs, and I do occasionally throw an interesting short story at my players. But for the most part, it's all about them. I want to explore things from their point of view. Not just the world. The world I already know, I'm the storyteller. But I want to explore genuine choice that is based on the character, their beliefs, their strong points, their flaws, and of course, their morality. I believe RPGs to be a collective storytelling experience, and to that end, I don't want to know, going into the game, how it will end. I don't want to know. I want the players to show me that. Thank you very much for listening, and tell me, what is your preferred way of running a game? What are the aspects you focus on most? Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.